My name is Cassie Elakis. I am the Family Engagement Director for Excel in Ed, and I am so excited that you've joined us tonight. We have some wonderful panelists and some great organizations that have co-sponsored this event with us, and we're glad that you are here. So we're broadcasting live on Facebook. And so if you have a Facebook account and want to share this webinar recording, which is live now, you can do that by going to facebook.com/excelined and sharing that, sharing the webinar video. To ask a question, you can submit it in our questions and answers section, and we'll take that question up during our Q&A portion of the webinar. But of course, you can drop a question anytime you'd like. So before we get started, we want to introduce a representative from our partner organization who has helped to make this webinar possible, a great organization. So I want to introduce Candice, who is the Director of Outreach for the Association of American Educators. Candice, welcome. Tell us a little bit about AAE.
Good afternoon. Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you very much, Cassie. I am Candice, the Director of Outreach for the Association of American Educators. We are a mission-driven, nonprofit professional association serving and supporting our members and educators nationwide. AAE provides professional benefits and services, including liability insurance, scholarships and grants, and professional resources. Our approach to advocacy was founded on the belief that educator voices, along with those of parents and community stakeholders, are critical when decisions are made, especially for our students in our classrooms. While there are several methods used to approach advocacy, our methods are simple. We identify educators and parents like you who are interested in solving problems in education and using their voice for impact. We give you the training, skills, and practice to influence your communities, and we connect you to opportunities to make a lasting difference by using your authentic voice. Through member surveys, virtual and in-person training, focus groups, and more, our members receive the individualized and attentive support they need to become successful advocates. So Cassie, thank you, and thank everyone for joining us today, and a special thank you to our partners at the Foundation for Excellence in Education.
Candice, thank you so much. And so our first panelist, who I'm going to do a quick introduction for, she is a fellow at AAE. Her name is Jessica Som. Jessica is a special education teacher at Cabot Elementary in Cabot, Arkansas. She was recently at the White House representing the state of Arkansas as the 2022 Teacher of the Year. She is the wife to Shane, who is serving in the Air Force, and she is the proud mom to two kiddos. So Jessica is going to lead us through some tips, but let me introduce our two other panelists that we have for you. Rachel Darrow is a U.S. Navy veteran from Jacksonville, Florida. She's the mom to two boys, and she is married to a husband that is currently serving in the Navy. And Rachel has been an outspoken advocate for her kiddos and for other military families throughout the country. And finally, we have a great partner and friend, Ann Williams, who is the Assistant Director of Student Learning and Partner Success at Step Up for Students. So for over a decade, Ann was the principal of a school that served a high military population located just a mile from Pensacola, the Pensacola Naval Air Station. And so she's got some information for Florida families and then also other families across the nation about some education options. Again, if you have a question, please drop it in the Q&A, not in the chat, in the Q&A. And then I'll turn it over to Jessica. I just want to make sure that everyone knows this list is not to be exhaustive. Jessica is sharing her expertise and experience with us, and we are so thrilled to have her here. So Jessica, take it away. I'll be running the PowerPoint for you.
Thank you so much, Cassie. I appreciate it. And I am so excited to be here tonight. As she said, I am an elementary school special education teacher in Cabot, Arkansas. And I currently teach kindergarten through fourth grade special education. And I am the 2022 Arkansas Teacher of the Year. And so I wanted to talk a little bit tonight about some options for military families. I teach in one of our state's actual first Purple Star school, which has a high number of military students. And so there is a lot of families connected to Little Rock Air Force Base in our community, which is where my family is currently attached to right now. So one tip I wanted to bring up was the importance of gathering those important documents for your students during that PCS time. Or even if you, we have been in 2 different schools in this community. So even if maybe you've moved to the base, but you live on base for the first year and then you buy a home and so you move to a different school within the local community, taking those documents with you. And so a lot of times as a special education teacher, especially, I have students that show up at school who we've been told are eligible for special education services. They're on an IEP, but we haven't seen any documentation of that. And so whether your child is eligible for services or if you are just moving into that new area, it is so important that you come with documents in hand to the school, report cards, some of those formative assessments for the end of the school year, or even our schools use MAPS testing. So we send home some of those MAPS testing reports. Anything that you can share with your school, with your community, but about your child is so helpful. Like I said, those individualized education plans or 504 accommodations that your child might have so that they can have everything they need to be successful at school. That is so important. Of course, when they come into a new school, we usually will have a meeting. We will accept a transfer IEP, maybe examine some of those goals, some of those services, make sure they are still applicable to the student's needs, but we need to get those services started as soon as possible. And this doesn't just include those classroom, that placement or those services. This could be speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, anything your child is receiving in their current setting, or if they're receiving outside of the school setting, maybe through preschool services, that needs to be able to transfer in. My own daughter received speech therapy, and I remember when we moved from her preschool setting to kindergarten, getting that new IEP written for the school age child, making sure those services transferred was so important so she didn't have any break in receiving those critical services that she needed for her success. Also, don't forget any health forms, physicals, immunizations that you may have already had prior to the school year beginning. You're moving during the middle of the year, especially if your child's going to be participating in sports. Bring all of that in so that they can get started as soon as possible. We know the schools are, we do the transfer request, we do the document request for them to come into the schools, but sometimes that can take a while. Sometimes that can get to an administrative office and not necessarily to the school, or not in the hands of the right person that needs it. So if you have them sent over in the official capacity, but show up with them in hand, be prepared to share them with your school, with your child's teacher, and so your child can get what they need immediately to continue being successful. If you go to the next slide, please. This is a really difficult thing. We know both of my children were born in Germany, and while they moved prior to school age, they were just in a like a Mother's Day out preschool. The standards are different everywhere you go. I had friends whose children attended German schools. Sometimes that was kindergarten, sometimes those were those older grades. When moving back to America, that is a huge difference, not just in the academic standards, but also those social expectations. What they were doing in school is going to look very, very different overseas as it does in the States. And even in different parts of the United States, the expectations are different. And so really understanding what that looks like, what your child is going to be expected to know. One thing Arkansas does that I find really helpful is they have on their Department of Education website, they call it the playbook for educational standards. And so you can go on there and see grade levels broken down, what a child is expected to be taught and know by the end of a certain grade. So as a special education teacher, it's fantastic for me because as I'm writing goals for students, I can look at those goals, I can look at the grade level expectation and modify it to meet those students' needs. But as a parent moving in, you can look and see, hey, what is my child going to know by the end of this grade level? What should they have learned by the previous grade level? And maybe what do I need to do to help them be prepared or be caught up? Or they may be advanced in that area when moving into that new state. Every state is going to look a little bit different. The time of year they teach those standards may look a little bit different as well. And that can be really, really frustrating that if you're moving over Christmas and your child learns something in the fall that maybe the new school isn't teaching until the spring, just being aware of that so you can kind of prep your child and prep their teacher for knowing this is what my child has done to this point, but we did miss out on this that you've taught earlier in the year. It can really help your teacher be better prepared to support your child, your student, and being successful, and then really cut down on frustration for everyone. So I really think understanding those standards, accessing them on your state that you're leaving and the state you're entering's Department of Education website, a lot of that information is out there and available. And a lot of school districts even have some of that available on their district website. Again, understanding assessments and testing. I have one of my best friends is a teacher in South Carolina. I'm in Arkansas, and we were talking just a few weeks ago because it's testing season all across our country right now, what her school does compared to what our school does. And some of it looks the same, the names may be different, but really understanding how those assessments are used, what testing is happening. At special education students sometimes are not taking those district-wide assessments. They might be on an alternative assessment. And so if your child is not going to be taking the regular assessment, or they have modifications they need in order to take it, making sure we understand those so the school is prepared to provide them. And then those graduation requirements, there's different states require different things as far as how many math credits are required to graduate, what those classes are. And a lot of that has changed in a positive way, in my opinion. Since COVID, we're seeing more technical courses allowed. We're seeing different paths to graduation, but understanding what the state is going to require. And maybe there might be a summer school class that has to be taken, or a class that you could take connected to a local college to help you get back on track with that graduation requirement, so your child can graduate on time as they should be able to, and with that plan that you have for them. A lot of states, I think it's really important to understand that third grade with that early literacy is a huge year. I think that in 2001, most of our states, I think at least 45, 46 of them had policy in place about students in third grade being on grade level for literacy. So really understanding what those policies are, and if your child is struggling, what supports are in place for them. There might be dyslexia services that your child is eligible for. There might be some more intervention services, and making sure that you're accessing those things that you're guaranteed to access. It's not always for a lack of the school not wanting to provide. Sometimes they just don't know what your child was receiving. And so we are our children's best and biggest advocate. We have to be their voice. And when teachers and parents are partnering together for students, that's where we're going to see that success. So just knowing what your child needs, you might not know specifically what it's called or what they're entitled to, but again, that goes back to that paperwork. What were they receiving at their previous school that we can carry into the new school year in the new school setting without a break in those services? States are going to be different with their health and vaccination policies. So bringing that information, a lot of time that's going to come from your military treatment facility. And it should be online, but it's always nice, again, to show up with those documents in hand, so there's not any break or any questions or concerns with that. And then school start dates. Arkansas typically had started in previous years around the middle of August 15th. There's been a change this year that we're not starting until August 22nd. And so if you are moving, if you're PCSing, that can affect the date maybe that you want or need to report by, or if family members need to come a little bit earlier so that they're prepared to start that school year that first day. That's such a critical time for kids to get connected, to find those friends, to find those relationships. And so if in any way possible you can be in place for the first day of school, it's always so helpful. And the minimum age for kindergarten, I feel like this is always a hot topic. My husband jokes with me, my daughter is born July 31st, and like I said, they were both born in Germany, but we are a part of the C-130 community, and all roads kind of lead back to Little Rock Air Force Base. And I knew that August 1st was the cutoff date for school starting, and she was already a week and a half overdue. And they said, it's today or tomorrow that we're inducing. I was like, July 31st, it's going to be that school cutoff day. And he just joked and said it's because my birthday's in August and I didn't want to share my birthday month. But I really do remember thinking that there's not really an option sometimes in the public school setting for that start date for kindergarten. So making sure sometimes private schools or charter schools, other school options will allow a student to start earlier, but a lot of states really have a line and there is a cutoff date. When I taught preschool, I had 3 and 4-year-olds in the same setting in a public school. And I had 3-year-olds that had late birthdays like my daughter in July, and 5-year-olds that had turned 5 on August 5th. And so Your child may be the youngest or they may be the oldest in the grade, but just being aware of that when moving in, so you're making appropriate plans if you need to be looking into preschools in the area or considering private or public or private or charter school options that may be a better suit for your family. This is such a key point in finding the best educational fit for your child. I think one of the biggest and best things I can recommend and suggest for you is connecting with Purple Star schools in your area, if they are there, if you're in a high population military area, and reaching out to your state's military and interstate children's compact commission, finding that local, that state compact. And one way to do that is to look for your school liaison officer connected to the installation you're moving into. They are a great primary point of contact. Our Little Rock Air Force Base is Terry Williams, and she is fabulous. She has been a fantastic support for me as an educator, as a mom, finding resources when my husband's gone to support my children, and also when I need to ask questions about how the local area can support students and what those students need in order to be successful. A lot of times she's able to solve problems before we even need to go to the compact to solve them. And so connecting with that primary installation contact is just critical. But please, I cannot encourage families enough to look up your local NIC3 at your state. They are just a wealth of information that can really help you with some of those barriers for attendance, enrollment, eligibility, and even graduation requirements. Sometimes they can look at a student's transcript, find courses that maybe align with a new state's graduation requirements, and work to make that graduation happen on time. Let them be an advocate for you and for your child, and let them support that educational success. The programs are in place. One of my biggest complaints is not having equitable access to that information, getting that information out to families. And it's one of the things as Teacher of the Year for the state of Arkansas and really on a national level that I really plan to work on, because military families need and deserve this information. And if the programs are in place, the resources are there, we just need to know how to access them and utilize them to do what's best for our children. Continue looking at those district websites. Like I said, there's a lot of school districts that have that curriculum, those course breakdowns explaining what's going to happen each 9 weeks. It's not a secret what your child's going to learn. So just look and see what information is out there, and really understanding there are options for your education. We attend a school district different from where we live, and I teach in that district. My children go with me. So understanding school choice, that when you move in, you have a certain amount of time to make that school choice known, even if those windows are closed, that you can apply for it. Looking outside of your district, that may be the best option for your child. And not just because of the academics that are offered, maybe a sport is stronger, or maybe that sport is not offered in the district you live in, and you want your child to be able to continue something that's important to them and that is part of their education journey. Also look into charter schools. There's a lot of fantastic charter schools that have come in our local area, and I know all across our country, that are really geared towards supporting military families. They're a great option for meeting your child's needs, and sometimes they have specialty programs that can really help plug your child in and make them feel a little bit of that home from where they just came from. And of course, there's always private school options for families who want to look into that. There's K-12 scholarship programs. Each state has different options available with that. And so really looking into what your state offers and utilizing those programs, because like I said, they're out there. We just, as a military community, have to make sure we're sharing that information with one another and getting that information out to everyone. More and more, I feel like, especially since COVID, we are seeing a lot of mental health concerns in our students. And we know that military children are not immune from that. The stress of a parent being gone, deployments, a change in duty station, injury or death even for our military members. These are real issues that we struggle with. These are real things that I think a lot of the general public forgets about. We've seen so much of the withdrawal from Afghanistan. The wars are over. These things that the general community doesn't necessarily see happening on a daily basis that we know is affecting our families. We know these deployments are still happening. We know family separations are still a daily part of our lives. And those mental health supports are real things that we need to ensure our children have access to. To see more and more schools are providing these supports in their schools. So asking the questions, asking if the district has options, And then again, connecting with your military base, the MFLACs that are available, the military life family counselors. One thing that our state and our local area started doing was embedding some of these counselors in our schools that have the highest number of military connected students. There's more and more happening to support our children's mental health needs. And so I just really, really encourage you to make sure that your child's needs are going to be met, whatever they are. There's special education options. We know if you're a family with a student who is eligible for special education services, you probably are very familiar with the laws that are in place to provide those services for students, but every state looks a little bit different in what those settings look like. I teach in a self-contained setting, which means that most of my students spend a large portion of their day in my classroom, and what we push out or push into the general education setting for activity, lunch, recess, and other areas that really support their educational needs. That might be a phonics time or reading time, science or social studies. Understanding what that means for your student. Every state is going to be different. And so where you've come from, it might look different from where you are now, but you are your child's biggest advocate in ensuring that they're getting those services that they need to be successful, and they're getting those related therapies. That is just, we know as people who work with students that are diverse learners and have exceptional needs, those therapies are a critical part of their education and part of their success. And then there's college and career readiness options. I think I was talking to a group the other day, and we were just talking about some of the good that's come out of COVID, which is, we don't like to talk about the good a lot because it messed up a lot with education. But I feel like there's been a kind of a renewed focus on that career readiness. And I heard someone say that instead of just asking children, what college are you going to? What college is in your plan? Asking, what are your next steps? Looking for those options that are not maybe just for those students who do not want to go to college or that's not their path, looking for some of those career readiness options. A lot of our high schools are providing some great programs, partnering with local businesses and local colleges, letting students get industry credentials, being certified to go work in different technical fields, moving into cosmetology school, welding, these different options that students have for being successful. And it's really, really exciting to see that focus back on some of the technical options. I graduated high school, went straight to college. That was the expectation of my family. There was not another option. And within a year, I had dropped out. And I ended up going to a technical school. I was an esthetician. I worked in a day spa before going back to finish my degree in education. But I did that for years. And so just knowing what options are out there so that your child can continue on whatever their path looks like for success for them after high school graduation. And then, of course, talking to parents in that new assignment. There's so many great social media groups for military bases coming in. There's typically spouses groups or community groups, and I think they're amazing. I also think it's something to always use caution with, because my experience in a school or in a community is going to be completely different than someone else's. So taking what those people are saying, listening, hearing it, but making your own decisions as well. We all know that social media is great when it's great, especially we can have events like this where we can just share information all across our country and our world. But that, there's not always a lot of accountability for what we post online. But look for parents, look for other experiences, and find out what they've experienced that worked and maybe what didn't work for them. We can go to the next one, please. And so I think that's all I have really for me. Cassie, I don't know if you had any questions that have been dropped in the Q&A that we wanted to answer now, or if we wanted to wait.
Yeah, we had a great kind of teacher question here in the Q&A. So Carrie writes, I'm a military spouse who's going back to the classroom this fall as a teacher. Any tips as a working military mom?
Oh gosh, it is such a hard thing. I think it's really exciting though. One thing for me, we always hear about military spouse unemployment and underemployment, and it is a legitimate concern. And it is a problem. We make less money than typical people in our career fields, and we're moving constantly. So we can't always establish that successful long-term career. One thing that I found when I go into an interview or when I have applied for positions is letting them know, they know I'm a military spouse. It's pretty clear sometimes when you look at our resumes, and it typically comes up in that conversation, that no, I cannot promise you 5, 10, 15 years that I'm going to be able to work here, but I can promise you a couple, and I will be one of your best employees. That I won't be here forever, but look at the career force as a whole. People are changing jobs, people are moving. You're not seeing people stay in the same position for years and years and years. But when I move in, I have unique experiences. I have worked with a very diverse group of people from all over the world with different beliefs, with different backgrounds. I know how to get along with people. I know how to be adaptable, but also finding that tribe. I have been so blessed with my coworkers, with my church community, with base friends, with local people that we have just connected and developed relationships with, that I can count on to support me, to support my children when my husband's not here or not able to do those things. And I think that is so important, but knowing that balance, because it is hard to do it all. And sometimes we really are serving in every capacity for our family. But as an educator, going back into the educational field, especially if you're in an area with a high population of military connected families, you can be their voice. You can be their advocate and help the other educators who may not understand what they're going through, may not understand where these behaviors, these frustrations are coming from. You can be a voice for them and support other teachers in being the best they can be for our military connected families.
Jessica, thank you so much. We appreciate all your tips. We just got some love for you in the Q&A from Lauren, who really appreciated those tips. Thanks, Lauren. This is a great transition because we have two really incredible experts on here tonight. Jessica, who I'll again say is the Arkansas State Teacher of the Year. We're so proud of her. And our other panelist is Rachel Darrow, who is a U.S. Navy veteran. And Rachel has a very, very cool experience advocating on behalf of military children and their education options. I'll say that this issue was not at the front of mind for me until a couple of years ago when my sister married someone who is an active duty service member, and she has children. And so between that, in my own experience, having nieces that are military kiddos, and then meeting Rachel, who advocated for Florida military families to have more school choice options, particularly private school choice and K-12 scholarships. And Rachel and I worked together for a couple of years. And so I wanted to make sure that she was here and she could share her experience. So Rachel, welcome. Do you want to say a little bit about who you are and your background?
Hi, I'm Rachel Darrow. I am a military veteran. I used to be dual military with my husband. I've been a stay-at-home mom for the last 4 years, and I have 2 little boys. I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old.
And one of the reasons we started kind of chatting, I actually was at Rachel's school talking about school choice. And when Rachel and I chatted, I think you had just maybe been aware of Florida's K-12 scholarship programs. And so tell me about how that happened.
We were looking for the perfect school to put my older son into preschool, because we were looking for a full day school, because Florida has a pretty late cutoff or a pretty early cutoff for kindergarten, and he was kind of ready for kindergarten. So we wanted to find a preschool that was more of a school setting so that he could have that in his life. So we found a wonderful Catholic school, and we moved over here. And we went in on our first meeting and they told us all about these scholarships. And we were super excited about the scholarships because we were like, we qualify for that. And when we got home, we learned that we made $600 too much to qualify for that. So that was just completely out of the realm of possibility for us to send him to this school that we had just fallen in love with. And so I decided that we needed to do something about that. And so Cassie and I worked together, and we got that bill passed, and it was great.
And Rachel, tell me about that experience, because that was, I think you felt pretty comfortable, but it is definitely different. I think as moms, we're used to advocating on behalf of our kiddos with the doctor, with the school, with our child's teacher, but not maybe with state lawmakers. But you definitely did that. So what was that experience like?
It was way out of my comfort zone, of course. But I made a video. It was really easy. I just talked about how much it would mean to me for my kiddos, because we're a military family, and it definitely it's harder because you move so much, and it's really nice to be able to pick a school and decide that this is where you want them to go, and this is where you want them to make friends, and these are the, you know, the values and things that you've moved around with. And so making the video was a little bit difficult. Writing the letter was easier, and calling the lawmakers was a little nerve-wracking, but you know, it's not that bad. They're people too, and we can talk to them and let them know how we feel, and it's not that hard. We can do it together if we all care enough.
And what was it like when you found out that military families are not now automatically eligible in the state of Florida to receive a private school choice scholarship?
That was absolutely incredible for us. We called every day, because the school that we were going to is actually a very small school. So by the time we learned that the scholarships were available, the school had already filled up. So we called every single week asking, you know, are there any spots for kindergarten? Are there any spots for kindergarten? And we finally did get in, and he has the scholarship, and it's been incredible the whole time. He's learning so much, and he's in an environment where he's really thriving, and we're very happy with it. And it's all thanks to these scholarships. We couldn't have done it without it.
And you're kind of being able to do some new things in your professional life because you have those scholarships. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
I am a full-time college student now. I'm using my GI Bill to go to school to pursue a business degree in financial accounting. And I can do that because now I live 5 minutes away from the school that we go to, and I have so much more time, because before he was going to St. Patrick's, we actually got him into a charter school that was 45 minutes away. So we were commuting about 3 hours every day just to get him to school, and it was awful.
Yeah. And I think you had talked to me about, you had a school relatively close by, an excellent school, but you were not within the zone.
Yes, we have. We're very close to a public school that is amazing. It's one of the best elementary schools in the state, but we are 2 blocks outside of the district for it. We were always just a hair away from schools. So that's why I think it's just really important to allow people to have that choice to go to the schools that they want to.
And what would you say to any other families that are either listening or maybe who watch this, you know, live on Facebook or later, about advocating for their military kiddos?
Absolutely, call your representatives. It's so important. They listen, and it's really great. You just need to get out there and do it. It's not that bad.
It's the parenting experience. There's a lot of worse things, right?
Absolutely. But advocating for your kids, paying attention to what's going on is really important. And I wish everybody knew about these scholarships in Florida. But it's been a ride, and it's been great, and we love it.
So there's some more comments in the chat here. Carrie says, Rachel, thank you for sharing your experience. Which we do. We appreciate that, Rachel. And I can tell you it was hard some of the years, like there was no movement, and then there was lawmakers, you know, being able to really expand that to military families. This is something that, especially for families that have education disruption, so military families, foster, adoptive families, having those additional options are just really huge. So I'm very proud to live in Florida, where we have all of these wonderful school options, really great quality public schools, and everything from public to private and in between. So Rachel, any other thoughts before we kind of open up the Q&A?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate it. If you have a question, please feel free to drop it in the Q&A and we'll read them out. We have a couple questions to start the conversation, and then we can kind of move along to the ones that are in the chat. So I'm going to ask Anne, and Jessica to kind of rejoin the conversation. Perfect. And Rachel, you too. You're not out of it just yet. But I think that one of the things that was important that I receive a lot of times when I'm answering, I answer a lot of parent emails, which I'm happy to do. I think it's a really honor to be able to share good information as a parent myself with 3 kiddos. But one of the things that I hear over and over again is, what are some of the questions that you should ask a potential school to see if it's a good fit? And so because we have Rachel, Jessica, and then Anne was also a principal, I'll open it up to the first person who wants to kind of jump in there. So what are some good questions to ask a potential school to see if it's a good fit?
What I have a couple suggestions. Like you said earlier, I had a school a mile outside the front gate of Pensacola NAS, and we were on the road. So people drove past, they knew us, they knew we had many, many, many military families. And one of the things I would always tell the families is, because we had such a strong military population, the children in the classes got used to kids coming and going. So when they got there, they made friends fast because they didn't know how long they were going to be there. And they also, I enjoyed, maybe they'd leave in 2nd grade and then in 5th grade, they'd be back. And it was like they never left. It was the most beautiful thing to see. And so I probably would ask that. What is the military population like? What are the, are the kids, how open are the kids to the military students? That's a big one. You want to know that they open and they welcome them. And that was one of the things I always wanted people to know, that my kids loved having the military family there. And then also how supportive. I know Jessica mentioned Purple Star School, and Florida just signed that in this last session. And so we've got a lot of schools looking at joining in on that. And I think that's imperative that we have that. And they need to find that out. Do they find out what is the criteria for a Purple Star School, and then ask them, do you have this, this, and this? Because even though they're not labeled that yet, it's still good to know that they're working towards that.
And they've had to go through training. They've had to meet criteria to become that Purple Star.
That's right.
Which is really great. They're not just said, oh, we have a bunch of military kids and here's your banner. There's trainings they have to go through. And it's really great. I sat through one of them with our Arkansas Council just to know and be aware of what the schools were doing. And it was so informative and interesting to see. I think sometimes, like I said earlier, schools don't know. And if you were not military connected, the teachers don't necessarily know. And they want to support our kids, but they just aren't empowered to do that always. And so I know someone asked about being a military spouse and going back. That is your opportunity to be that voice. And I feel like in my district, I've been so blessed to have that platform and have that opportunity to elevate these students' needs. We had our state Purple Up Day on April 22nd. I mean, to see every kid in that school who was not military connected wearing purple and standing outside and cheering while our military kids walked around. I mean, they were treated like celebrities. They had flags, and it was just beautiful. And so, like, just to know what your school is going to do on those little special opportunities to celebrate children, to celebrate Veterans Day, so their parents can come in, grandparent, and just let them share a little bit of who they are, because they do so much. They don't always have that opportunity to shine and not have family nearby. But this is a chance for them to be special and stand out, even if it's just for a year or two. I think another thing I was going to add to that too is asking what your school's mission is, just to think, like, what is your mission statement? How are you supporting all students? And just hearing what they have to say. A lot of times it can apply to our military connected families. And so understanding what their beliefs are and what they plan to do for students. It's so important. In schools, they should be re-examining that every year and adjusting it as necessary to continue to meet the changing needs of all families. So I would definitely ask that too. And your principal, your building administrator should be able to shoot that off to you right away. There should be no, they are that school leader. They should be able to tell you without hesitation what their mission is, so that they are doing what they should be doing for all students.
Rachel, anything else you would add?
I would try and add that I would ask how tight knit the community is, because, like, my husband currently is away. He's been away since January. And it's been really helpful to have a community in the private school that we're currently at that supports us and is there for us. And, they always, take a little extra time to be like, how are you doing? Ask how the parents are. Because if you go to a school that's not parent centric, like the parents aren't overly involved, you're not going to have as much of a support system as if you go to a school where the parents get really involved in the education.
I'll agree with you on that and go along with it. And I think too, finding out, as Jessica mentioned, the Purple Star program, they train the teachers, but finding out that the teachers understand the needs as well. Because like you said, I had a lot of my families were one or both were deployed, and you have to be able to, there are gray areas, everything's not black and white, and you have to be able to understand that. And I think it's very important that you ask those questions. You find out, what is the military families, do they meet? What do you do for Veterans Day? How do you support them? All those kind of things. Yeah, definitely. And then you have in Florida Step Up for Students, which has the military scholarship. Well, the state has it. We're a scholarship funding organization, but that's huge for military families now. And I think it's wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that you guys, knowing you were $600. Oh,
We were so close.
you were so close.
So close.
All right, well, I've got another question here from Virginia, and she asks, how can school choice advocates connect with military families to let them know about existing school choice options and active school choice bills? Which is a great question, because there are a lot of really great public options as well. In fact, some charter schools or school districts that waive either residency requirements or make it very easy for military families to participate. So that really covers the whole the whole spectrum. And do you kind of want to take a crack at it? Go ahead.
We recently, one of the groups we work with are the school liaison officers at all the bases. And so we had a webinar last week, I believe, and they're scheduling one, reaching out to parents. We'll have a statewide webinar with the parents. So reaching out with the school liaison officers, working through them. A lot of them will then put our stuff up around the areas. Military recruitment offices, hanging up our posters there so people know about it and hear about it. I'm supposed to go speak at an, I'm going to say this wrong, ombudsman event in July. So, all those things, once you get your foot in the door, and I've been born and raised in Pensacola, so I've grown up in this town, and once you get your foot in the door and get to know people, it's easier to get on base and to share this information. But yeah, working with anybody that, I guess the USO as well, we're talking with them. So trying very hard to get the word out.
I wanted to second the school liaison officer. I mean, that just even if you're moving in, if the school liaison officer has information about a charter that can meet your child's specific needs or interests, if it's an arts-based school, just if they have that information, it's so much easier to get into the hands of families who are coming in and asking those questions. And that should be families' first step when they're moving in. If they haven't been contacted by the base, they should reach out, because it's just a wealth of information. They usually have good connections within the districts, and if they don't have the answer, they can find the answer for you. But it's great to have a central person on that installation that can help connect you to the resources you need.
I would just add that if you are looking for school choice options and you don't know where to start, if you registered for this webinar, you have my email address in your email. So it's at the bottom if you go back and look at the confirmation email you received. So if you want to send me an email, I will gladly find the organization that you need and get you in touch. There's a lot of really great state-based groups. Unfortunately, sometimes there's not like one central thing that says, hey, here's everything from your local residentially assigned school to kind of open enrollment, right? So going to a different school or going to a different district, all the way to private school choice. So that is what's tough. So There may be a couple of different options, but if you send me an email, I will make sure to get that to you. I'll drop one thing in the chat for families in Kentucky, Florida, and Missouri. We have a great website called mychoicesined.org. And from there, you can take a couple surveys to see if you qualify for a K-12 scholarship, which is really great. And big thanks to our partners in those states who have been so wonderful and helpful. So that is great. But Virginia, great question, because it can be really tough to make sure that we get good information. Rachel, did you want to jump in on that one?
Before, when most people go to a new base, they add people on Facebook pages. If you could just like spam all of the information on the Facebook pages, but a lot of the spouses and stuff are very well informed on the different schools because their kids go there, and most of them are super helpful. So, you know, ask questions there as well so that you can get a parent's perspective on the different schools in the area when you go to a new base.
Great. Okay, we have another question from Eliandra. How can an independent special education teacher become a resource to military families looking for online supportive learning in after-school settings? So that's a pretty specific question. So I don't know if anyone can maybe take a crack at it. If not, Eliandra, we can get with you afterwards.
I don't necessarily have the answer. I mean, as a special education teacher, I don't necessarily have the answer to that, but I mean, I can certainly look into it as well. But just connecting with the local, you know, community services that offer some of those additional special education services, some of those advocacy groups. We have a Gigi's Playhouse in Little Rock, which is a Down Syndrome Achievement Center, and they're all over the country, but we're the only one in Arkansas right now. But just there's some specific resources for those communities, and they provide after school classes, even some adult and teenage classes. But I think that's going to also vary depending on where you live. But there is so many unique programs and services all over our country for those students. So I hopefully we can connect her with something specific for that.
Thank you, Jessica. Appreciate that. Yeah, and for any states that have, you know, education scholarship accounts, whether they're supplemental or they're full ones, states like Arizona, West Virginia, Florida. So a lot of those states can be used, the savings accounts can be used, Ohio, so I'm just thinking about these other states now, where you could pay for tutoring. And other intensive, maybe intervention. Maybe your child really has a deficiency somewhere in, you know, maybe in 3rd grade math, and you're really wanting to help, and there's a teacher that you can contract with and use that money to really improve and enrich your child's education. So there's a lot of those options, especially with the pandemic and how much that's affected education. I think I think we're very excited to see states being innovative. And having that resource available to parents where they can work and supplement their child's education, which is pretty exciting. I do know we get a lot of questions about college and career readiness, and I think all of us on the call have littler kiddos. I think mine maybe the oldest going into high school next year, which is, oh no, Ann says no. Okay, Ann.
I've got one at junior college and one in med school. So.
Oh, and okay, so I know maybe not the med school part. I know I'll be there one day, my baby, but my oldest is going in 9th grade. If I think about that too much, I may cry.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we wanted to also, you know, share as a resource, we have a Pathways Matter a parent guide that has a lot of really great information. So whether your child is looking at college, a career, at the pathways that get them to different careers, whether that's an industry certification or credential, or, you know, part-time college classes. We have some great information, and just after I stop talking, I'll lean forward and drop that into the chat because it's a great resource that Excellented provides for families, and we're pretty excited to share it. Does anyone else want to share anything about kind of the college and career? Because we get that question a lot. No. Okay. If you guys, anyone else on the webinar has any questions, this is kind of your last moment to drop them in. We want to be really great, really good stewards of everyone's time. Zoe has a question. Oh, okay. We are PCSing to California. Where can I find more information about scholarship options, especially for private schools? So I'm not as familiar with California, so I will look that up for you, and I will get with Ann after this call. And if you want to send me an email, my email is Cassandra with a K jessica.excellинed.org, but it's in that email that you got when you registered. Send me an email with your email address and I will respond and find those links for you. California also has a lot of really great charters also. And then we have a fun one to kind of close it out unless there's any more questions. Joe asked, I was hoping Jessica could tell us a bit more about what it was like to go to the White House. I think that would be a great closing question, Jessica.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so all of the state teachers of the year from all over the country and then our territory, so Guam, all these other teachers, our Department of Defense teacher from Korea, all spent 2 weeks ago, we spent a week together in Washington, D.C. And it was so energizing, it was so exhausting, but it was one of the most wonderful experiences I've ever had, just to collaborate with teachers who are also going through this Teacher of the Year experience. There are different stages of that process. Hearing what's happening in other states, seeing what they're doing. I was just in awe the whole time of these amazing, innovative ideas and how they are serving their students. But part of that trip was getting to go to the White House, and we got to bring a +1, which is not something we thought we could take them to the gala, but that we found out the week beforehand that our +1 would be able to go to the White House with us. And my +1, because my husband Rachel's also gone, was my best friend of 20 years, who's a teacher in South Carolina. And so she met me there, and we rode separately, but we were able to spend a lot of the time there together. We had an opportunity to meet with President Biden and First Lady Dr. Jill Biden. I was able to take a picture with her, and I thanked her on behalf of Military Connected Families for the continued work and support of all of us. Just take that opportunity again to be a voice for our families and for our children. That privilege and that honor is just not lost on me, and I'm still reeling, I feel like, from all of the experiences. But there was a time where they were passing out champagne and hors d'oeuvres, and we were in the White House, and I'm looking out the window at the Washington Monument, and with my best friend who's just supported me for 20 plus years, and it was just amazing to think I am a military spouse who my career has not been that long in education. I'm in my 6th full year of teaching. I followed my husband. I've supported his career, and to have this opportunity to elevate my students, my diverse learners, the military connected families, and my friendships from the White House. It just was amazing. They gave us a gift of a bell, and President Biden shared that his grandmother had been a teacher, and when she stopped teaching in that one schoolroom, she took the bell that she rang every morning. And he just encouraged us to never stop ringing our bell. And listening to all the panelists tonight, that we're all ringing a bell for students and for children in different ways, and just that we can't stop doing that. But the students deserve us. They deserve our voices. They deserve our advocacy. And whether that's talking to lawmakers, senators, it's something I've been working on too for our families, that they need to hear our voices. Parents and teacher voices belong everywhere decisions about education are being made. And they need all of us. They need us to collaborate and work together. So we can have more voices in the Capitol, more teachers, and more military families there advocating for us. So thank you for asking that. It was wonderful. I think I'm in awe of the opportunity, because I never in a million years could have imagined that my teaching path would have taken me there. So it was so exciting.
I know we were excited for you. When I was talking to some of my coworkers about the panelists that we had, I made sure to mention she's at the White House, so I don't want to bother her right now. So I don't know if I'll ever get that opportunity again. So that was very exciting. So thank you for letting me kind of live vicariously through you there, Jessica. Any kind of parting final thoughts for our panelists, or for anyone that's watching kind of this live or watching it later on Facebook? Anne or Rachel?
I just want to say, I noticed my colleague Lauren May put the website up, but if you go to Step Up for Students /Armed Forces, it's a great place to go. You find out everything you need to know to register for a scholarship and attend the school of your choice. So see, and reach out to me. You can get my email through Cassie should you need it. I'm here for you.
And I would just say that your biggest resource is going to be the people on the base, and it's also going to be other parents that are in your situation. So always make sure that you're talking to other parents to see what's going on, and to see what they have to offer, because if it wasn't for other parents, I would have never known about these scholarships that were offered in Florida.
Thanks, Rachel. And Candice, just wanted to thank you and thank AAE for your support, for your co-partnership on this event. We really thank you. Of course, if you wanted to say any parting words, it's absolutely to you, but we just really appreciate it.
I appreciate learning as much as I did today. Thank you to everyone. And as Jessica referenced, if you have any questions about advocacy or would like to become an advocate, we do have training at AAE. So please go to our website, aaeteachers.org, and you can find me, shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to provide additional support.
And Candice, if you'll drop that into the chat, I think everyone will be able to see it. But if for some reason you don't see it, or you don't get to record it in time, I'm going to leave the webinar up for a couple minutes. But just shoot me an email, and I'm happy to connect you with whoever. We at Excel and Ed take our parent engagement really seriously. We want to be a wonderful resource to families, mainly because a lot of us are either teachers or parents ourselves, so it's personal. So we want to help families the way that other people have helped us. Thank you, Candice, for dropping that in the chat. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We're so thrilled that you made it. And if you have questions later, please email it to us. But I would ask, if you have a minute, share this on your Facebook page and tell more parents about it. And particularly about the organizations you heard tonight, Step Up for Students, AAE, and Excel and Ed, because we're all working together to make sure our kids are succeeding in the best education setting for them. So thanks again, everyone. We're going to end the webinar, and we really appreciate that you joined us. Have a great night.